The Financial Services Authority, who are the regulators of the British mortgage sector, have a fundamental rule that any mortgage approved by a lender must be affordable. The Tomlinson's lender was Platform Home Loans, part of the Britannia Building Society. We asked them how they justified approving this loan. They say they carried out thorough checks, including an affordability assessment. The Bradbury's mortgage came from London Scottish Bank. We also asked them why they approved that mortgage. Again, they say it was properly approved and that they've now agreed a repayment plan. Last month, the Tomlinsons were forced to sell their house to stop it being repossessed. Forced sales and repossessions can result in weakness in the housing market because there's a bigger supply of houses. And across the country, repossessions due to subprime loans are on the up. At a repossession court in Sheffield, we found growing anger against subprime lenders.
You're just waiting for the next letter to come through the door, constant threats all the time, you know, they're not wanting to listen to you, they're not interested in listening to you, and all they want, you know, is that money.
These people aren't even giving you grace to pull yourself back on your feet. They're actually jumping on you while you're still down. That's what they're doing. They're making a fortune.
Everywhere you turn, there are different charges for different things, and to be honest, most of what I owe is charges and not what I owe for the mortgage.
So how many repossession hearings across the UK are down to subprime lending? Well, there are no official statistics, so we've done our own research. We wanted to know how many of the 7,000 or so repossession hearings of the last 3 months involve banks and building societies who specialise in subprime mortgages or offer subprime loans as part of their business. Remember, subprime mortgages make up just 8% of the whole mortgage market. But we found that banks and building societies who offer subprime lending are involved in 70% of those repossessions. Of course, our figures aren't official, but they suggest the subprime market could be out of control.
I think out of control suggests that they aren't regulated, suggests that they aren't trying to be responsible, suggests that they're lending money without regard to whether they'll get it back. None of those things are true.
That is true in many, many cases that we've looked at. These things are happening, and they appear to be happening on quite a widespread scale.
Every lender is under responsibility to check ability to pay and to make sure that the advisors that they're using are reputable.
But how seriously are lenders taking that responsibility? We found that in some cases, criminal fraud has become as simple as filling in a form. This woman doesn't want to be identified. 3 years ago, a mortgage salesman came to her door and made her a familiar sales pitch.
I was happy to own your own house and not pay rent, and he made it out that I'd only be paying round about the same or not much more than I am on rent.
So it looked like a good deal, really, at the time?
Oh yeah, fantastic deal. But it didn't turn out that way.
The salesman came from this company, Home and County Mortgages in Cheshire. They earn a commission by fixing up people who want mortgages with banks and building societies. Tell me about the things that he asked you to do and asked you to say to get the mortgage.
He asked me to lie about what I work as, lie that I was self-employed, lie on how much I earned a year, and it was 3-4 times how much I earned a year.
The salesman instructed her not to write on her mortgage application that she was a cook, but that she owned her own catering company. Do you feel uneasy at any time about all of this?
Yes, all the way through it.
So why did you go ahead with it if you didn't feel right?
I thought it's just a little white lie.
He even left her the script of what to say if the bank rang to check her details.
The man just asked me, didn't ask me, he told me how much I earned a year. And I said yes.
And this was the amount that you had agreed with this mortgage advisor?
Yes.
A well-placed source has told Panorama this kind of fraud was commonplace at Home and County. Some employees there even made up fake job references for applicants, using forged letterheads to fool lenders into believing their inflated salaries were true. Not everyone at Home & County was happy about what was going on. We've obtained these internal emails which show that one manager recommended 5 times that the salesman selling the fraudulent mortgages should be sacked, but the company did nothing. In the end, the manager approached the regulators of the mortgage sector, the Financial Services Authority. It's up to the FSA to crack down on mis-selling and fraud. But they didn't get round to visiting Home & County for 4 weeks, and it was another 6 months before the regulator launched a formal investigation. During that time, our source saw the top salesman who sold our Cooker mortgage shredding documents. When the FSA finally investigated, many documents were missing. But even so, it discovered an estimated 40% of mortgages where the paperwork had survived should never have been approved. In 2005, the same year as this investigation, Home & County's owner and managing director Mike Bowers paid himself £1.5 million. He didn't personally sell the mortgage in question, but he was told about it later and took no action against the salesman. I wanted to ask Mike Bowers about how many fraudulent mortgages his company has been involved with, so I tried to meet him as he turned up for work. Mr. Bowers? Mr. Bowers? Well, we haven't had a chance to put any questions whatsoever to Mike Bowers. I imagine he's not quite so reticent when he's selling mortgages. The FSA eventually fined Home & County £50,000, a slap on the wrist for a man who's made millions. Mr. Bowers told us his company has taken all appropriate remedial steps to address cases where customer detriment has been identified. Nobody knows the extent of this kind of fraud in the British subprime mortgage market. But when it happens, the consequences are felt all along the chain. If the borrower can't repay, the bank or building society is left with a bad debt. Only the salesman profits. What do you think should happen to the company who gave you this advice?
I don't think they should be selling mortgages personally, because if I cook a meal for someone and it's not right, I shouldn't be a cook. So they shouldn't be able to fix people up with mortgages.
The regulators of the British mortgage market are the Financial Services Authority, and we have a long list of questions that we like to put to them. For instance, why aren't the sanctions stricter for those who do break the rules? And more importantly, just how widespread is mis-selling and fraud in the British subprime mortgage market? The FSA, though, has declined to do an interview and doesn't seem to want to answer any of these questions. Instead, the FSA emailed us saying they were aware of weaknesses in subprime lending and were determined to clamp down on it. But a former FSA enforcement lawyer has told us this failure to regulate smaller mortgage advisors wasn't an oversight, but a policy.
So the focus changed to very much looking at the very big companies, the banks and institutions, and less at the high street firms and the smaller businesses. It's pretty clear from most of the FSA's literature and from experience in the market that the FSA spends very little time in considering and regulating individual firms on the high street.
This light touch regulation has led to some embarrassing lapses. The FSA's admitted to us that it even issued a licence to sell subprime loans to a man who'd served jail time for fraud. It turns out the industry regulator doesn't do criminal record checks as a matter of course. Thamesmead in London, the mortgage badlands of Britain. Here it's not just a question of rogue advisors committing fraud. We've also found this light touch regulation of the subprime market has led to large-scale scams. In fact, it's turned this area of London into a crook's paradise. And it's all down to the free and easy way subprime mortgages are handed out.